Hi, I'm Ashley Hawk, and I'm going to give you my informative speech, but first let me show you my audience. Okay, I have two members there. Let me make sure they're in it. And then I have two of my members there. Imagine you're standing in front of a painting. You're in a quiet museum, and at first it just looks like an ordinary picture. There's colors, there's shapes, there might even be a figure. But the longer that you stand there, the more it starts to feel like it's trying to say something to you. Something deeper, something intentional. Like every detail and every shadow was placed there for a specific reason. And suddenly you realize it. You're not just looking at art, you're reading a story that was never meant to be spoken out loud. Symbolism allows women artists to express complex ideas and experiences in ways that go well beyond what is seen on the surface. Understanding symbolism helps us interpret art on a deeper level and recognize how women have expressed their identity, their voices, and their experiences throughout history, even when they were excluded from traditional artistic spaces. As a photographer and an art student, I've spent a lot of time analyzing visual meanings. And through my research, I've really come to appreciate how powerful symbolism really is in art. Today, I'm going to explain what symbolism is, why women artists have often relied on it throughout history, and how individual artists still use it to communicate meaning in their own work. Symbolism in art allows for deeper meaning beyond what is visually seen. So instead of saying something directly, artists often use objects, imagery, or small details to represent a bigger idea. The Tate Museum explains that symbolism allows artists to communicate meaning through their visual language rather than direct explanation. And what's interesting is that these meanings aren't always obvious right away. That's actually what makes symbolism just so powerful. It invites the viewer to slow down, to look deeper, and to think critically about what they're seeing. The Art Story Foundation describes symbolism as a way for artists to express ideas indirectly, especially ideas that might be difficult or even controversial to say it out loud. And because of this, symbolism adds so much emotional and intellectual depth to artwork. So now that we understand what symbolism is and how it works, it becomes important to look at why women artists relied on it so heavily in history. So throughout history, women were often excluded from formal artistic training and recognition. Art historian Whitney Chadwick explains that women faced significant barriers in the art world, which limited how they could express themselves openly. And because of these limitations, symbolism became more than just a technique for them. It became their voice. It allowed women to express identity, their personal experiences, and their emotions, all without having to be direct or be censored. Brode and Gerard explain that symbolism also gave women artists a way to challenge societal expectations and express resistance in subtle but powerful ways. So instead of openly confronting restrictions, they embedded meaning beneath the surface. Cultural expectations and gender roles also influenced what women could create and how the work was received. And yet the Metropolitan Museum of Art points out that even with these limitations, women still found ways to contribute meaningfully to art history, often using symbolism as their tool. So understanding these challenges helps us see that symbolism wasn't just a creative outlet. It wasn't just a choice. It was often a necessity. So now let's look at how individual artists use symbolism throughout time in their own unique ways. Well, one known example, who is my personal favorite, is Frida Kahlo. Frida used personal symbolism to represent her pain, her identity, and her physical experiences. In her biography, Hayden Herrera explains that Kahlo's artwork reflects her lived experiences through deeply symbolic imagery. Her paintings aren't just visual, they're emotional, and they're personal narratives. Another example is Artemisia Gentileschi. She used symbolism to communicate strength and female empowerment. Mary Gerard highlights how her paintings challenged traditional views of women and redefined how women could be represented in art. Even today, many modern women artists continue to use symbolism to explore their identity, their cultures, and social issues. The National Museum of Women in the Arts explains that symbolism is still such an important tool in contemporary art. And while each artist uses symbolism differently, the purpose remains the same: to communicate something deeper, something that we immediately see. In conclusion, symbolism is a powerful tool. It allows art to communicate far beyond what is visible. It adds depth, it adds emotion, it adds meaning to artwork. And throughout history, it's given women artists a voice, even when they weren't given one openly. Symbolism allows women artists to express complex ideas and experiences in ways that go well beyond what is seen on the surface. So, the next time you stand in front of a piece of art, don't just glance at it. Give it a moment, really absorb it, look a little longer, and then ask yourself, what isn't being said out loud? Because what might seem like a simple image could actually hold entire stories underneath it, one that someone once needed the world to understand, all without ever speaking a word. Okay. Thank you. Okay, back to my audience. Still 2. Okay.